Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
Sorry, we had a little blip there. The actual Hubcast went off for a second, so we had a panic, but we're back now. So what I was saying just then is, you don't just earn loyalty in the good times. You earn loyalty when the chips are down, right? When you support somebody through the understanding of knowing that everybody has tough times, bad times, dips, etc. You know, it's a two-way thing, but I think leaders need to understand that the more they stand by their people, as long as it's temporarily and not completely ongoing, then that's going to earn trust. Dave?
So we use the word reciprocal a lot.
We do.
I think that absolutely stands here because it's brilliant for a leader to support their people, but every now and then the leader needs support too.
Yeah.
And I can certainly think about times since I started with Trans 2 where I've needed to support you too.
Absolutely.
We need to support the business. Both of us need to support each other going forward. So then actually it becomes much less about hierarchy and leadership, but much more about human relationships.
Well, I always remember, Dave, there's a couple of times that stands out where, I stuck through some personal stuff and through some initial tough times and a tough period. Because when you join this business and we do what we do, it is a steep learning curve. It's daunting. It's, all the rest of it. But then I remember a couple of occasions, one where we had an employee leave and we had lots of delivery on and we had lots of things that we'd committed to. And the first thing you came and said to me was, listen, Martin, I've got your back. Whatever you need me to do, I will do, and I'll never forget that. And the other time was through Sjogren syndrome. I had a bit of a dip, didn't I? I remember I had a weekend away with the family, had a bit of a flare up of symptoms. I was out on my feet and you said, listen, I'll take your week. You just chill out, right? That happened as a byproduct of me being there for you prior to that when you needed it. So it's a two-way thing. But this is what I want to say. Dave said, when he joined this organization, he assumed a level of loyalty and expected a level of loyalty from the employer, but I had to earn it from him. Spencer?
I think both of you are 100% right. And I do like the use of the word reciprocal, Dave. I'll make a note of that word and use it more often. But reciprocality. You see what
I'm going to check the thesaurus for that one. Yeah.
Right. Reciprocality works both ways. Quite literally. No, what I mean by that is, if we had a little bit of a love in there, it was all right, and you earned there was trust and there was integrity expected, and it was earned. But if you're an employer who treats your employees like they're going to mess you over, they're going to take advantage of you, then there's no trust, there's no reciprocal trust there. So your employees aren't going to trust you, and you're not going to trust them.
Yeah. So I absolutely buy into this. And I think what we're saying there is we've talked about trust and how it's central and integral in terms of modern day workplaces and between leaders and their team members, but between organizations and their employees as well. We've talked about transparency. The more transparent you can be, the better, because nobody likes being kept out of the loop.
No.
Nobody likes to feel like it's cloak and dagger and not knowing what's happening and hearing things second nature. Empowerment of independence. People like their own autonomy, and different people like different levels, but most human beings need to be empowered to do what they do and not feel like the microscope's on them all the time, or they're not entrusted to do what they need to do. And we've talked about loyalty there. And I love that line. If there's one thing that's coming out of this Hubcast for me, it's, loyalty should be expected, or hopefully we can get to a place where it's expected by employees. But I think employers have to earn it. I really do. I really do. And if we can think like that from a management perspective, we won't go too far wrong, right? Because you'll go out your way and it will always come back in the form of reciprocation in kind. We've got a bit more time now. We've had a blip and we've restarted the Hubcast. You mentioned support and protection, Dave, as part of this trust thing. The protection and support, do you mean from your leader? Is that what you're talking about? I, as an employee, need to feel protected and supported by my leader. Does it tie into a little bit of what we was talking about there?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think it's much larger than just the leader. I mean, we work in a small business, so everything is very, very obvious and transparent. So I think I'm thinking about times when I've worked for larger organisations, and I think it's much less obvious. And I think it doesn't just stop with the leader. I think it's the whole organization, the whole culture that's got to foster that from minute one right through to minute billion or however long your tenure is with that business. But again, it's reciprocal.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to throw in there before we finish it up is investment. Now, what I mean by investment is I believe trust is established between two parties when it's not just one way or reactive. So it's like the friend who you will go out your way to organize nights out and to text them and to try and arrange things. But very rarely, if ever, do they ever be proactive in coming forward to you. And in the end, what do you end up doing as a friend? You end up giving up because you think, well, you never bother, so why should I bother, right? So what I mean by investment is proactive investment from the leader in taking that genuine interest in you as an employee, in your development, in your career, right? And they're coming forward and going first. They're investing their time in you, not reacting to what you need. And I think that builds trust because it says to an individual, you want me to succeed. You've got my back. You're making an effort, so I will do the same for you. So I call that investment. And I think that's really important because sometimes in the chaotic sort of everyday life of work, we get, as a manager or leader, we miss the opportunity to take time to do that. So it can feel like a very reactive relationship rather than a proactive one.
And I think that when you start talking to or looking at some of the attitudes of leaders, whether it's executive level or whether it's a little bit of a lower level, you can look at things like investment on things like one-to-ones. How many times do you sit down with your employee and have a one-to-one, talk to them, tell them, put them in the picture, a little bit of transparency there for you, and listen to what they want. Listen to how do you think that we can develop you as an employee, as a tradesperson, as a whatever?
Well, the other question before that, Spence, is what do you want? Where are you heading? What do you want from your career? Do you want to be the next manager? Do you want variation and to move around the organization? Do you want to develop a skill set, right? Do you want to do a master's degree on the side? Do you want to go on training courses? What do you want? And I will do my very best to facilitate that.
And when things get busy, then one of the first things to do is we'll let that one-to-one slip. And then before you know it, you haven't had a one-to-one for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. And then you get your annual appraisal or whatever, and they turn around and say, right, you're actually lacking. Your performance has dropped in the last 6 months. Well, if you'd have told me that 6 months ago or 5 months ago, we might have been able to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Right, listen, final thoughts on this because I think it's a great topic. I think we've got to put trust more than ever in the modern day workplace at the center of our relationships as a leader. And I'm talking to the leaders here. I think it accounts for everybody. It counts for everybody, right? But let's go first. If you want to, I think we get it the wrong way around. I think leaders hire people in and they assume the position of, right, you prove yourself to me. You earn my trust by delivering for me. You deliver for me and then I'll do something. I think we get it the wrong way around. And I think those leaders who understand the human dynamics of, hang on a second, I've got an employee who's coming in here expecting my loyalty, right, and my trust, but I've got to earn theirs. So in my time of need, right, I've got a person who's willing to go above and beyond for me. If you take that standpoint, you're not going to go too far wrong. Don't fall into the mistake that it's the other way around, right? Employees have more choice than ever. They'll just go somewhere else where they can get that, right? So I want to send that message out. And we've talked about a few things there for listeners to think about. You know, are you displaying loyalty, right? Even in the bad times, are you there for them and willing to work through the situations in the bad times to get the good times? Transparency, be as transparent as you can, right? At an individual level, from a communication, from an ideas, from a situations perspective, so it builds that open relationship with others. We talked about protection and support. We've talked about empowerment of independence. When you give people the freedom and space to express themselves and do what they do, it starts to build trust. And then lastly, we talked about investment. Don't be reactive, be proactive. Take an active, make an active investment in your people. That's what will build trust in their mind. And I think I just wanted to sort of record this hubcast because in society more than ever, for the reasons we mentioned at the start of this podcast, we're generally starting to become more mistrusting of everybody and anything than ever before.
Yeah.
Any last words, guys? Dave?
Yeah, we're not without starting a whole nother debate. But I think it's something that is dissolving from society in general. I think if you think about how we were 20,000, 30,000 years ago, whatever it might be, as primal man, I think we had all of these things inbuilt naturally.
Yeah.
And that's how we formed societies and communities and so forth.
Yeah.
And through evolution, I think it's dissolving.
Yeah. And we need to wrestle back some of that control. Awesome, chaps. Really enjoyed that. Sorry for the listeners for a little blip in the middle. I hope it hasn't affected it too much. I'm sure it didn't. Usually we would start again and re-record it, but we just felt like it was going so well and it was such an interesting topic that we were just going to record another segment, link the two, and hopefully it flowed quite nice. So that's all for this Hubcast. Think about it, leaders, and we'll be back shortly with another T2 Hubcast. See you soon.